Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this special chat with champions. We're looking ahead to a blockbuster season because the new year is going to bring the Gentleman's Game, your favorite cricket season, back on the Star Sports and the Disney Star Network. We're going to begin with the series against Sri Lanka, three T20Is followed by one-dayers. One-dayers have to be the rage now because we've course got a one-day World Cup coming up. We begin in Mumbai at the Wankhede on the 3rd of Jan, followed by a second T20I in Pune, the final one in Rajkot. Then we shift over to 50 overs in Guwahati. Jan 10th is the first one-dayer, followed by the second one in Kolkata, and Thiruvananthapuram is where we end the series. So plenty for us to talk about when we discuss the men in blue, and of course, looking forward to this conversation with two absolute champions. In the house, we have with us Gautam Gambhir, Kumar Sangakkara. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, for reuniting once again on the Star Sports Network. So much to look forward to. You know, it's a big year. There is, of course, a T20 World Cup that's next year. Before that, it's the one-day World Cup. Both of you have tremendous experience when it comes to that. So let's talk about the two teams in particular. This question is for both of you. You know, Saga, you look at Sri Lanka, you've been part of 5 ICC final events. You won on one of them, you were there. Gauti, of course, you've been the man of our finals in ICC events, won 2 World Cups in India. But in the recent past, that silverware hasn't come for either nation. So when you're looking at either India or Sri Lanka to lift that one-day World Cup later this year, what are some of the ingredients that you would want to concentrate on in the coming series? Gauti?
Look, first of all, obviously you need to identify the core as well, which is very important. We've chopped and changed too many things too frequently as well. We've never had a settled unit. And more importantly, I think you can't keep taking breaks. If the World Cup is around the corner, if you're playing a 50-over World Cup, at least our core, whether it's Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, all these guys have to play consistent cricket, and together they need to play. They can't keep taking breaks when it's a World Cup here. And suddenly you realize that by the time the World Cup is around the corner, you still doesn't have the settled unit, and then you start making too many changes. It will never work, and that is what has happened in last 2 World Cups, whether it's the T20 World Cup or the 50-over World Cup. So I hope these guys don't take so much of break, especially in 50-over format.
It's also about overcoming the line, Sangha, when you're in pressure of a knockout situation. I mean, what does Sri Lanka particularly need to concentrate on?
Well, I think Sri Lanka has been doing okay in the recent past, but okay is not really good enough to win World Cups. They've had individual moments of brilliance, a few in terms of the Asia Cup that was concluded before the T20I World Cup, where they played really well to win it. But overall, Sri Lanka as a side needs a lot of things to go perfectly right for them on the day to beat some of the big sides. So they have a good core, but I think consistency and making sure that they put as many runs on the board as consistently as possible has been a failure. In terms of winning one-day cricket, you really need to be able to score between the 310 to 320 run mark, depending on the surface. In India, the grounds are small, the outfields are fast, the wickets are pretty flat. But to really be able to compete with the big sides in world cricket, you have to get those runs on the board. If you're chasing, you got to make sure that you have a side capable of chasing those totals down. And if you're setting, you really need to make sure that the partnerships from the top right through the middle order and the lower middle order are able to contribute to that. Without that, the bowlers, you can have the Hasarangas, the Thikshanas, the Karunaratnas, the Madhushankars of the world. But when there is not enough runs on the board, that's never going to be enough. So that's going to be absolutely critical for Sri Lanka.
You know, Gauti, as often always happens after a World Cup, especially the manner of the exit in the T20 World Cup, India will hit the reset button, will identify that core, as you mentioned. We begin with the T20 series. One of the things they've done is, you know, given the leadership again to Hardik Pandya. Now, he's had, in his small role that he has had in terms of being a leader, he's had a tremendous amount of success. He's grown as a cricketer, as an all-rounder. What is his approach? What do you enjoy about his approach, Gauti? What could Hardik look to exemplify when he takes on this role of this squad that will be playing the T20 series?
I think first of all he's done really well whenever he's got that opportunity to lead the side, whether it's in the IPL or whatever limited opportunities he's got to lead the Indian team. He's done reasonably well. I think he's given the freedom to the guys to go out there and express themselves, which is equally important, and I think he's that kind of a character as well. Sometimes your leadership is about your personality as well. So the way your personality is, it starts reflecting on the entire squad. That's one thing which I felt that Hardik has done really well. And T20 cricket, anyways, is meant to be expressing yourself. You can go out there and play freely. I think India has been subdued in the past, but hopefully with Hardik captaining the side now, especially when Rohit is not there, he can actually ask guys to be courageous, because I've always believed I think the team that is the most courageous and can play that fearless cricket will have an advantage, irrespective of what format they're playing in an ICC tournament. India in the past has been very, very subdued. We've spoken a lot about the template and stuff, but when it came to the crunch games, I think we completely got into a shell. I think that is not something which I think you would expect Hardik to ask his players to do. So one thing I definitely expect Hardik to probably look for the future is that when it comes to those moments, I think take the positive route as compared to the negative one.
It's similar question really, Sangha, about Dasan Shanaka and his leadership. If you can see his personality translating into his leadership for Sri Lanka, they are, Asia Cup champions in the T20 format. What have you enjoyed about his leadership and what he's done to the Sri Lankan unit?
I think that there are quite a big difference between captaincy and leadership, and just as Gauti just said, your personality, how you carry yourself, and how you're able to manage your players becomes supremely important. Your captaincy on the field in terms of tactics, you can discuss, you can get all the help you need, but inspiring your players to go out there and make sure that they play the right brand of cricket that fits them and allows them to win is really a very, very specialized skill. You spoke about Hardik Pandya. I think he has that in spades. Dasan Shanaka a little bit quieter, more reserved, laid back. But I think he needs to step out of his comfort zone to ensure that when he does get on the field, the players look to him to be the first guy out, whether he's batting, whether he's bowling a couple of overs, whether he's on the field, his body language, all of that is going to tell and actually rub off on the rest of the players. So as a captain, he's been very good. As a leader, he can be better. But I think Sri Lanka's made a fine choice in Dasan Shanaka being the captain and leader of the side. It just needs that skill level to rise to meet the moment. I think that's where Sri Lanka has really lacked. Where we have individual brilliance in terms of Hasarangas, you have Kusal Mendes, you have Charit Asalanka, Bhanuka Rajapaksa, etc. But overall tied together, the quality of the side really has to be consistent where everyone contributes towards the win. That's why it doesn't matter how good an individual player is. When you combine them as a unit, they really need to be able to deliver the goods more often than not. You can't have the inconsistency Sri Lanka has had in the past. Especially, like I said, about setting totals or chasing down totals with their batting and win world tournaments. So that's something they've really got to address and address fast. And this particular tour in India is going to stand them in good stead.
Hey, you're talking about particular skill set. Gauti, we've got to talk about one individual because he's the template for T20 batting, so to speak, and that's Surya Kumar Yadav. Experienced cricketer, we all know that. We always discuss his age, about the fact that he's played his cricket and now had his rise. But it's also now additionally been identified as a potential leader because you made him vice captain of a side. Now, how does that mold into that kind of player that Surya will continue to be? Does it encourage him or motivate him even more?
Look, I don't think so. We need to look into it that much because we have to wait and watch once Rohit comes into the T20 squad whether they're going to still continue with Hardik as the captain and Surya as the vice captain. We will have to wait and watch because how many options did you have with this young squad? But again, I think Surya is one guy. I think he's shown that actually you can actually be a T20 format player, and from T20 you can go on to play one-day cricket and then probably be in the reckoning for the test matches as well because he's actually a product of an IPL. If you see, his IPL numbers are incredible, and if you compare it to the first class cricket, his numbers in first class cricket, but it's always good that when people like Surya Kumar Yadav, who has gone through the grind in first class cricket, they've grabbed their opportunity with both hands, or whatever opportunities they've got, and now they've been trusted with the leadership, and being the vice captain of the country is always a great honor. So I'm sure he's going to go on to do a good job, and I think if this is the way forward, even if Rohit Sharma comes in, if the selectors feel that Hardik is the right guy and Surya is the vice captain, you can't keep chopping and changing. If this is your leadership core, so be it.
And similarly, I mean, Sangha, if you have identified someone as a leader and you want him to take Sri Lankan cricket forward, now what would Dasun Shanaka be telling his troops now? Yes, you had success against India in the Asia Cup, but in India, the record isn't as great. Is it about the overpowering, the aura of the situation? Is it the fact, conditions? How can Sri Lanka really look to improve their record in India?
Focus on the tour at hand, and then of course the focus later on in the year. I think Dasun and the team have to be really mindful of both. Play what is in front of you, yes, but at the same time ensure that the combinations that you play are going to suit the conditions and the grounds and the oppositions that come your way later on in terms of a World Cup. Starting off with the T20s, I think it's about understanding both your strengths and your limitations, and understanding the level of skill and the different skill sets that you have at your disposal. It's very difficult to try and copy and play you try and copy and play like another side. You've got to really find the brand of cricket that fits you. I think that's going to be something really that's going to be talked about. How do we build the consistent totals? What are the totals that allow us to win games if you're batting first? How do we bowl and go about limiting size to chaseable totals? Because if at your international level, if you play your good cricket at the skill levels that you have, you should be able to win more often than not. And then once in a while, you will have the individual brilliant performances that actually allow you to win games that are extremely tough and extremely difficult. But you can't expect someone to be brilliant every single day, because that just means that as a side, you're not doing well enough and you're relying on just a couple of individuals to pull you through the difficult time. So tying that together is going to be a really important thing for Sri Lanka in this tour. And if they can do it, that'll give them a lot of confidence to springboard from there.
I mean, similarly, you speak of confidence, Gauti. I flipped that question because just based on their records in bilaterals against Sri Lanka at home, it's a strong record. But India would not want to underestimate any opposition. So, what are the strengths that Sri Lanka possess? What do India need to be wary of?
Look, I think Sri Lanka is a formidable side in T20 cricket. That's what they've shown in the Asia Cup. You can't win the Asia Cup if you don't have the talent. They've got individual brilliance.
Absolutely.
They've got the combination. They've got two world-class spinners. How many teams has two world-class spinners in Hasaranga and Thikshana? And they can bowl in different situations as well. So not at any stage India can take them lightly. And they've got people like Kusal Mendes. They've got Asalanga Rajapakse. So these guys can be destructive, especially in a T20 format. The challenge for Sri Lanka will be 50 over format. T20, I think they're a very good side, and probably it's 50-50 if you ask me personally. They've got Dilshan Madhushankar as well. We haven't seen a lot of him, but he's got all the talent. Whatever little we saw in the Asia Cup, he can bowl 140, he can swing the ball back in, he's got a good slower one. Lahiru Kumara's got pace. So they've got all the ingredients to be a very good T20 side. But when it comes to 50 over format, that is where they've got to be challenged big time.
Well, I mean, let's move on to some of the players that will have an opportunity really in this series to shine. And what the amount of time, Sangha, that you would have spent with someone like Sanju Samson, you understand him as a leader, as a batter, you understand his template. But, he's had his chances on and off. He hasn't been able to completely break open that door when it comes to the Indian side and be the number one always when it comes to that first 11. Now, how does he do it?
I think he's got to keep things really simple and just concentrate on batting. The IPL is one thing, playing for India is another. And what you've got to really concentrate on as Sanju Samson in the Indian side is understanding what your job is for the side. And when you go out, make sure that you're relaxed, your mind is very clear, and you have the clarity about how you're going to play that role. He might have to bat out a position in the Indian side depending on where they fit him in. But the one good thing about Sanju is whether he's batting up at the top at, let's say, number 3-4 position or lower middle order position at 5 and 6, he's got the game, the power, the touch, the placement, and the mentality to do really, really well. The one thing he shouldn't do is think that this is his final chance to prove his mettle and try and be desperate to succeed. He's got every single thing going for him. He's a wonderful young man. He's got skill, he's got temperament. All he needs to do is let it settle, not to fight it. Make sure that you're adjusting with what comes at you on the day. And then go out there and enjoy the way he plays. Enjoy the wins if India gets them. Enjoy even, you see, one of the things that as a batter or as a team that you've got to understand is you can still enjoy your cricket irrespective of the result as long as you play well and as long as you play to the level of skill that you have. And that's an absolute truism when it comes to Sanju. If he can play at the level of skill that he has, he's going to enjoy his cricket no matter what. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for him and for all the fans of Indian cricket and world cricket to see what this young man can do, because he is a very, very special talent.
Gauti, more often than not, Sanju Samson does have to bat out of position for India. I've got to ask the hard question. Are these his final few chances?
You can't control what you can't control. You should only try and control what you can. Stay in the present. I don't think any of the cricketer would think that this is going to be my last opportunity. The moment you start thinking about it, you start getting into your shell. You don't want any young cricketer to get into that shell. And see, I think there are times when he's been unfortunate. I'm not going to give any sympathy or show any sympathy towards Sanju, but there are times when he hasn't been able to grab those opportunities. He's got so many starts. Had he got converted those starts into those big runs, we might not have had this debate. But we all know that what a special talent he is, and I've been saying it for quite a while. That I think that he's probably one of the best batters going around in the Indian setup, irrespective of the conditions, whether you play him in Australia or in subcontinent. He's got all the skill set to be very, very successful. But ultimately, when you're playing for your country, there will always be challenges. When you're playing for a franchise, there is far lesser pressure because you know that no one is trying to compete with you, or probably there are players who are lesser talented than you. But when you're playing for your country, I think there will always be people running for your position. So yes, for me, I think especially in this series, he should try and focus and be in the present and don't think what's going to happen after this series, because that's not what you can control. All you can control is probably watch the ball and react to what is in front of you and to the best of your ability, and everything will be fine if he continues to do that. And one more thing, Manti, one more thing I just want to add. I think from the unfortunate point what we've spoken about, that there are times when he's been unfortunate. There are players who've been given a lot of long ropes just on their talent as well. Sanju's probably had that much of talent, but yes, he hasn't been given that much of a rope, and he's been batted out of position as well. So hopefully he can get that position and probably it can be given a longer run. At least in this series, he can get those 6 games and see where he goes from there on.
Gauti, it's a similar question really for KL Rahul, because you've spent so much time with KL Rahul, and I mean in IPL he's extraordinary, not playing in this T20 series, but just the position that he is in mentally also for Team India right now. What advice, you must be talking to him right now, what advice are you kind of trying to give him when it comes to wearing those India blues and translating that sort of form that we see in the IPL?
Look, exactly the same what I just spoke about Sanju. You can only control what you can control. You can't control the selectors, you can't control the selection, you can't control what's going to happen in the next series. You've got 3 one-days against Sri Lanka. If you want to play that, just be in the present, and that is all you can control. Because the moment you start thinking about uncontrollable things, you're anyways putting undue pressure, which is not true. Because if you don't perform, eventually someone else will take your position. And that's with everyone. That's not only with Sanju or KL. That's with Virat Kohli as well. That's with Rohit Sharma as well. If they don't perform, you'll start questioning about their positions as well. And that is what international cricket is all about. We got to accept it, that there is no one who is indispensable. So you've got 3 one-days. You bat in the middle order. Try and get those runs, because ultimately it's the performance that keeps you in the side, not the name or how much talent do you have. It's the performance that should count. Nothing beyond that.
Absolutely. Now, listen, we've got a super fan question coming in for both you gentlemen, our Star Sports super fan. It's a bit of a catch-22 from what Gauti's actually been talking about. When you're building a team for a World Cup, you want to retain the core, because Mufaddal has this question. Sangha, I'll start with you. Many of the senior players might look to rest throughout the year when it comes to T20 internationals to focus on, one-days and tests. So will BCCI keep looking to give opportunities to different players in each series? Now, it's a catch-22 because Gauti would like to keep the core when it comes to T20 internationals when you're looking at that World Cup. But what's the reality, Sangha, for Mufaddal, our Star Sports superfan?
Well, I think it's a decision that has to be taken in conjunction with the ambitions of India and how they're going to have their best players playing as much as possible for India. And that core is vitally important. you have to strike a proper balance between getting players enough rest, but also getting them enough cricket to be able to be at their best when called upon to play for India. Rest can be very, very counterproductive, especially if you've been in great form and in rhythm. Sometimes you need to keep playing. At other times, you need a bit of a break from fatigue to recover and come back, refreshed. But the really important thing is, while you chop and change players, it can get quite confusing. Some might do well, some might not do well. And if you have failed to identify the core of the team that you really require to win tournaments and to win series, it can add pressure to give an opportunity to someone that perhaps is not as vital in your side as another. And that's what you have to be quite careful of. And I understand that in the modern day, there's a lot of cricket that's played and players get tired. There's IPL, there's all these cricket, and India plays a hell of a lot of more cricket than other sides. But at the same time, players themselves have to be able to balance out their bodies, their work schedules. So India becomes the absolute priority, and staying not just fit, but also in top form for the country is vital.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tough one to balance with such a schedule that they have. We've got another Star Sports superfan. John's got a question for both of you. Gogi, I'll ask this question that he has specifically for you. Considering the next T20 World Cup is in West Indies and you have worked with Deepak Hooda in the IPL, how do you see a middle order consisting of Surya, Hooda and Hardik shaping up as 3, 4 and 5 for India?
Look, Hooda needs to do well. Hooda needs to perform consistently. You still have many more options in there. I think he can chip in with a couple of overs as well, and he still hasn't got the right number. He's actually opened in Ireland, he got 100, and then he played one game in the T20 World Cup, and then he played one game in Asia Cup. So when you see, it's tough for a young boy who's done really well in IPL, and then he's got a T20 100 as well. So if he can grab this opportunity, probably this could be your middle order as well, because these guys have got the strength. Whether it's Surya, whether it's Hardik or Deepak Hooda, these guys have got the strength to clear even in the middle overs as well, and that is what is required sometimes in T20 cricket. And they can be multi-dimensional as well. They've got all kind of shots in their armory. So if he continues to perform whenever he gets this opportunity for India, this could be a middle order, and it's got to be one hell of a middle order.
Gautam Gambhir, Kumar Sangakkara, such a pleasure to have you here. Do you gentlemen know that you've appeared together 47 times on the international stage together? Any parting words to each other before the series begins?
Well, not from my side. I've enjoyed playing against Gauti. He's been absolutely brilliant. And I'd much rather, play, not play, but appear against him or with him on TV rather than on the field, because he scored a hell of a lot of runs against us.
No, it's vice versa. In fact, I loved watching Sangha bat. I think there are not many left-handers I loved actually watching, but I always loved watching Sangha bat, even when I was actually fielding, and he used to get a hell lot of runs against us as well. It was always a pleasure to play with him and against him. And there are times, obviously, Sri Lanka was one great side, especially in their own conditions. It was always difficult for us to beat them, but he was one great batsman which I've actually had the honor of playing with or against.
This is the elite list of left-handers
Thanks,
club. I don't know what I'm doing here, gentlemen, but thank you for keeping us company. Looking ahead to the series, which begins at the 3rd of January at the Wankhede with the T20Is, 3 T20Is followed by the one-day series. Yes, one-dayers, that's the rage at the moment with the World Cup later on the year. That begins on the 10th of January. Of course, we'll keep our coverage going as exciting with all our analysts across the Star Sports Disney Star Network as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to more of this banter when the series begins as well, and more questions coming in from all of our super fans. Please do keep sending them in so that we on your behalf can ask them to our experts. Thank you for joining us. We will see you from the 3rd, 6 p.m. Don't miss out on Cricket Live. Bye.